You're talking about the need to follow FAA policy and guidance. That seems kind of like a generic term. What type of publications are you actually talking about?
At the top of the guidance hierarchy, FAA orders are permanent directives primarily focused on defining the agency's policies, organizational responsibilities, methods, and procedures. They're written for FAA employees, but the ODA must follow these orders fully. The difference is that our processes may look a little bit different within the ODA because we don't use the same terms necessarily. For example, we don't have aviation safety engineers, but instead we use engineering unit members. Because we can't explicitly follow the order, the procedures manual has captured the essence of the defined procedures rather than the specific details that are provided.
You're right. It's impossible to follow the orders that are relevant to the ODA exactly as written for the FAA because we use slightly different systems that we've developed. There are a number of FAA orders that we meet the intent of our processes, though so changes to these will affect how we do our work. Like recent changes to Order 8130.2 and 8100.8. What about advisory circulars? How do they fit in?
Where orders are written for the FAA, advisory circulars, or ACs, are written for the aviation industry. They provide guidance on what the FAA expects by offering methods, procedures, and practices that are acceptable for showing compliance with the regulations or explaining requirements more in depth. They may also provide context for how certain regulations are interpreted or are best practices. They do not create or change a regulatory requirement. They're solely used as ways to help the aviation community at large learn how to approach regulatory compliance. One thing to remember is that when following an AC, you need to follow all of what's provided. We're not allowed to cherry pick what works for us and leave the rest out.
I see. ACs are valuable tools to keep us from guessing what's expected by the FAA. But sometimes we can't follow the advisory circular exactly as it's written. For example, maybe we're installing some equipment that doesn't exactly match what's been captured in an AC. What do we do then?
Well, the first thing we can do is look and see if there's more specific information provided by the FAA in policy memorandums. They usually come about because someone asked a question, like, what do I do if this AC doesn't match my installation? Or there's evidence that industry needs more clarification. A lot of times, the FAA has already addressed differences and provided clarifications that we can work with. If that still doesn't get us moving forward, we can initiate an issue paper that explains what we're doing and why the current FAA and policy and guidance doesn't work in our situation. This is coordinated with the different offices responsible for standardizing requirements so we can reach an agreement on what is specifically expected.
Is that our only option? Issue papers can take a long time and impact our project schedule. Isn't there anything else we can do without going down that path?
There is. Not all guidance is formal. Sometimes it comes from the OMT and we follow the directives they provide. An easy example that comes to mind might be when there's a special condition that's applicable to a project where available guidance isn't published about how to document this on an 8100-9. If they've delegated a unit member to make an approval, we can ask them what they'd like to see and then follow the directive that they provide. Because this is informal, it's a lot quicker to coordinate with the OMT and keep things moving.